Hello friends, Tanya here for Spellbinders Day 3 of the Crafty Advent Calendar. And we are going to open box number 3 and find, what are we going to find? We are going to find a 2-piece die set. This is a lovely detailed border die and a simple border die. So I'm going to cut this out for demonstration purposes out of some brushed weight cardstock. Boy, that's easy for me to say, isn't it? And I'm using my Sidekick here, just a small desktop die cutting machine. It works fantastic with this. I'm just going to push the detailed element out and pop out the extra bits. And it looks just gorgeous. Now this fits across a 4 1/4 inch piece of cardstock. I took a piece of blue spritzed or ink blended cardstock. I'm going to add some dabs of Barely Art Precision Glue behind this very detailed element. And we're going to adhere that together. I fully intended to use this piece to create a project, but while I was contemplating what to create for today's video, the blue and white just did not fit with what I ultimately decided to do. But you can see that it nests perfectly in the simple border die cut area. We're going to pull out the Kaleidoscope Arch sentiments and all of the Kaleidoscope Arch elements, and we're going to create a project with that. I'm starting with these 2 sentiment stamps from that stamp set. They create half circle elements and they fit perfectly in the dies, which you'll see here shortly. I'm using some white pigment ink. This happens to be the Sharktooth White from Atelier Ink. I do stamp it 3 times to get a good solid impression, and then I'm using the Alabaster White Brutus Monroe White embossing powder. You can use whatever white embossing powder you like, and I find by using a white pigment ink, it makes sure that if something doesn't get completely covered with the embossing powder, you still have a nice solid white image. I happen to be using some craft cardstock here. You could use Dune or Portobello. This happens to be Desert Storm. All of those colors are similar. I just wanted a nice craft background. And then I'm pulling out the stitched Kaleidoscope Arch dies. This is part of that collection. This collection came out in November, and this is my first opportunity to play with it, and I thought this would be a good opportunity. So we die cut that arch twice, and we have all of these little pieces to combine. There are 2 layers that you can add behind the delicate details on this arch die cut, and you need, as you can see, this only does half of the semicircle, so you'll need to cut 2 for each piece. So there's going to be a total of 4 pieces to layer on here, and you're just going to overlap the middle diamond shape on each of these. I'm just adding the glue kind of at the top and the bottom of these arches, lining them up with the previous die, making sure that they line up nicely. And you can see how that's creating a lovely layering effect on the delicate little diamond shapes on this arch. The second layer I used was a brushed white layer, and this is some mirror gold cardstock. And I like how the gold just pops in the middle of that white and craft colored diamond. Adding the last on this first arch. And then I'll give you a close-up look on how that all finished up. I think it looks just beautiful. It does take a little effort, but it's not real difficult, as you can see. I did die cut the sentiment that comes in this set from some mirror gold cardstock. I also cut the same banner with some brushed white cardstock again, so it shows through. This says "From me to you." In this stamp set, or sorry, this die set, there were also some greenery and flowers. I'm going to show you how to assemble those. I did die cut the flowers from 3 different colors. I've got a nice light blue, a pink, and a purple. I have a layering flower here. There are centers for these flowers, and I die cut those with some more of the mirror cardstock just to keep that whole same gold tone throughout this project. So I'm going to take the centers and pop those in the middle of our multi-petal flowers. This is kind of a cupped flower. I'm adhering one of those, the second layer there, and then I'm going to tuck a gold center in between these 2 layers so it's peeking out. I think it's so pretty. The rest of the flowers are pretty simple. And this one does not have a stem, but there is a branch of 3 leaves that goes rather well with this. These little flowers all fit on this branch. I'm going to add the centers first. There are 3 different sizes of centers on this one die. The one die cuts out centers for all 5 of the flowers. I do love it when they group things like this so that you don't have to fiddle with extra tiny dies and everything goes through in one pass. We added the flowers to the branch. There's a single stem for this cupped flower. I suppose that would work for the larger 5 petal. And then there the semicircle arches glue together. You can see where there's a good overlap spot for them. Just going to line those up and adhere those together. And then that center area is a great place to add your sentiment banner. Just going to adhere that. I'm using my reverse tweezers, which are my best friend in the craft room. That and my little pickup stick and my fine tip glue. Cannot live without those. And my plan is to cluster those flowers to the left of that. We're also going to use the stencil from this collection. I think it's called Kaleidoscope Window. I am using my Altenew stamp platform or stamp wheel insert to hold down my stencils. I'm using antique linen distress ink and a blender brush just to get a good coating on this white cardstock that is cut to 4.5 by 6.5 inches to go on a 5x7 card. Can you believe that we made it to day 3 before I decided to make a 5x7 card? Now this is a very repeating pattern, so I'm going to avoid getting the ink where I don't want it on the right side of the stencil, so that when I'm finished ink blending this, I can pick up the whole stencil and line it back up and continue my ink blending. Here you can see I just peeled it off. Just going to find my repeating pattern, tack it back down, and start ink blending again, and it turns out beautifully. I like how antique linen matches with the craft cardstock. It's not exactly the same color, but it's close, and it's sort of subtle. It just really blends into that background. And you can see here I tried to use that blue pre-constructed element, but the blue just was not doing it for me. So I decided to change it up, and I cut some mirror gold cardstock with that fine detail. I pulled out the stylish ovals, and I die cut some vellum with the oval, and then use that simple border to cut part of it away. We're going to adhere the fine detail border right on the oval, lining it up with the simple scalloped border. Just making sure I get enough of the glue. The Barely Art glue is a great detailed glue. It has a very nice fine tip, so you don't have a ton of glue sticking to the back of your element so it doesn't squish out and make a mess. We're going to also use the stencil on the inside of the card. This is a great way to add some extra detail to the inside of your card. And it's super simple. You don't have to think really hard. I just used the same ink with a lighter hand to cover the whole inside of the card. Well, most of it. I did do some randomness to this so that you can easily write over the inside of the card. I have put some extra cardstock on the back of this panel, and we're going to adhere this to our 5x7 card base. We have it in the landscape direction. I don't do this direction very often. Now I'm going to, as you can see, I've placed the flowers where I think I want them and used some press and seal to keep it in place. Added a little bit of extra cardstock behind our Kaleidoscope Arch element. Glued that to the vellum, and now we're going to add a little more cardstock to the back of the vellum underneath our oval. That creates the perfect spot to add a little bit of extra cardstock to create some dimension behind the vellum, so it looks like it's all floating above the main panel. Now I am going to add some glue in some small strategic spots for the flowers and tuck that under the arch element. I have a really good idea already of where I want them, and I don't even have to trim the stems because the extra cardstock underneath that arch panel is not too big. There's that 3-leaf branch, and that adds the perfect pop of greenery behind our card. One more element. These are from last year's Crafty Advent Calendar. There's some really light yellow, creamy colored sequins without holes. They have 2 sizes. I am making 2 scatterings of 3 sequins on each side of the main element on this card. And that adds just the right amount of sparkle to our card. There we go. I hope you enjoyed this project. I really enjoyed creating it. It was so much fun to add some of the recent products that just came out to our Advent calendar. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, now would be a great time to do that. Make sure you check that description box below for all of the products that I used today. And until next time, here are a couple more videos I thought you might enjoy. See you tomorrow. Bye.